Welcome, friends, it's the MovieFilm Podcast. MovieFilm Podcast, enjoy the show. Zachy and Brian are talking about the movies. MovieFilm Podcast on the radio.
It was the perfect crime. But for Miami detectives Marcus Burnett and Mike Lowry, it was the ultimate nightmare.
This was our career bust, which is what, $100 million?
Just do what you do, only faster.
Columbia Pictures presents Martin Lawrence, Will Smith, Bad Boys. What you gonna do?
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
Welcome to a MovieFilm commentary track. I'm Zachy Hassan. I'm here with Brian Hall.
Hey, how's it going, Zachy?
Hey, you know, I've wondered often, Brian, are you more of a Mike Lowry or a Marcus Burnett?
You've wondered that?
From the moment we met, I was like, this guy, he's either a Mike or a Marcus, and I don't know which.
Well, I think both of us are a little from column A, a little from column B, right? I mean, I think we have some confidence and pride in our work. I would say that's the Mike Lowry of it all, and I'd say that, the Marcus maybe feel a little less secure about their standing, but also confident in their ability. So if we're really going to read into this movie more than I think anyone ever has in the history of its release, I think we're somewhere in the middle.
Okay, top marks. I like that answer. So in case you couldn't tell from that little preamble, we're going to be watching Bad Boys. And the question that comes to mind immediately, I know I'm asking, why are we watching Bad Boys?
Well, it's the weekend that Bad Boys 4 is coming into theaters.
Who'd have thunk, right? 29 years after the first film, they're still going with these things.
You know, and I can't say that these movies are at the forefront of my mind throughout the years. However, I am excited to watch a new one. So, I mean, the appeal is still there, I think. And it appears to be tracking for a bigger opening than anything we've had so far this summer season. So,
yeah. So that certainly speaks to something.
Yeah. By the way, the whole Mike Lowry thing, every now and then I'll say to myself, I'll be like, Mike Lowry. And I, for the life of me, could not remember what that's from, but it's just something that has stuck in my brain all these years. And so then watching this recently, I thought, oh, Mike Lowry, right?
That's kind of remarkable, to be honest.
Yeah, just one of those weird things, that gets in your brain and pops up every now and then.
Yes. Well, with that in mind, why don't we get queued up and ready to go? We're gonna go on this epic journey together. And, if folks want to watch along with us, they can certainly do that. So let's take a short break. We'll come back and we will watch Bad Boys, the first film from 1995. And we are back and ready to go. I'm queued up. Brian, you queued up?
I'm queued up.
Okay, so there is only one cut. It is the theatrical cut, directed by none other than Michael Bay, making his big screen debut in this film. Hey, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm ready to do this.
Let's do it.
So we will hit play on 3. We'll go 1, 2, 3, play. Ready, Brian?
Yep.
All right, 1, 2, 3, play.
Zachy.
Yes.
I feel like I'm getting a glimpse into your feelings about this movie.
So I should say, by way of context, it had been a minute since I revisited this. It's been probably easily 20 plus years.
Probably less for me, but I can't say this is a movie I remember well.
Yeah. So there is that. And so it had been a while. And I rewatched it. In the lead up to this commentary track, as we do, so that we have it fresh. And I made perhaps a strategic mistake because I'm writing a retrospective on the film Speed, which turns 30 this year. So yesterday afternoon I watched Speed again, and I was like, man, wipe the sweat off my brow, and it's really just taking the totality of that experience. And then
It's an action masterpiece.
It is just about a perfect movie.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, and now I gotta watch Bad Boys, and so I rolled right into that. Which I don't know that there's a time to watch this movie where you'd be like, oh, it's good. I would say that probably the literal, actual, scientifically documented worst time to watch Bad Boys is right after you watch Speed.
You know what? Got it. That makes a lot of sense. By the way, I just want to comment real quick at what we're looking at. These real sun-dappled shots. I mean,
they're driving on the surface of Mars.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. It's gold. Like, they talk about like golden hour. Like, this is beyond that. Like, they're on the surface of Mars, the color grading on this. But this reminds me of how movies used to look in the 80s. These Bruckheimer movies, Top Gun, Tony Scott films. They had this crazy chemical coloring process. Now you can touch every pixel you want and change the color. That's right. But they had to dunk these things into chemicals to try to achieve this sort of golden hour look. And it's just funny how extreme it is, Yeah. I mean, I kind of love it. It doesn't, is it good? I don't know, but I'm nostalgic for it. Yeah.
That's Playboy Playmate Lisa Boyle, by the way. I don't know why I would know that, Brian.
Well, it's funny because this is Michael Bay's first movie, and you can see a lot of his signature.
It's also Michael Bay's every movie.
Yes, but this is when he had a little bit of restraint, I feel. I will say, this woman, when she gets out of the car, I was like, oh, I can see straight up her dress.
I was about to say, I was like, he had that camera positioned pretty much directly under her dress.
Yes. But this movie doesn't go as far as they will eventually go, but it's like all the hallmarks are here in this movie. But this is when he was still like, hey, man, maybe I can tell a good tale.
This is young buckstrap Michael Bay hitting Hollywood, not unlike Jimmy Stewart as Mr. Smith.
Oh my gosh! Oh, this is gonna be fun. Okay, so I didn't know what we were getting into. I'll give away, since we now know your feelings. Oh wait, we should add, by the way, this was additional photography. I thought that was interesting. This scene, it's something hit me. You'll hear this a lot with screenwriting or critiquing movies. You always want to have a scene that like grabs you right away. And I think, by the way, this shot too, with the Miami sign with the plane going overhead. It's just like iconic, honestly. I mean, maybe at least in my universe, like I think of that a lot, and I might even attribute it to a lot of other movies. I didn't realize it was from this movie. Yeah. But I feel like that shot, that style, that angle definitely feels of this moment.
Oh, very much so. I mean, this is the most 1995 movie that ever 1995 movie to movie.
Absolutely. I mean, they sing the "I Want to Be Like Mike" song in it.
Yep. And we talked right past the opening credits before these credits. Let's pour one out for the one and only time Martin Lawrence would get billing over Will Smith.
Whoa, I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
That tells you what the pecking order was pre-Independence Day.
That is fascinating. It's dude, I mean, we can get more into it later maybe, but I didn't realize Will Smith was still doing Fresh Prince.
That's right.
When this film was shot and released.
I mean, he was doing Fresh Prince when Independence Day was shot.
Crazy. I mean, I really do feel like those were two different eras or something. But
I mean, there is an episode of this. I believe it's the 6th season of Fresh Prince where little Nicky tells Will, "Oh, Mom and Dad won't let me go see Bad Boys."
Oh, really?
And he says, "Bad Boys, huh? What you gonna do?"
It's terrible, but I kind of love it. I don't know. By the way, this this guy, like, hey, do you know your role in this heist? The guy's like, I'm the decoy.
Don't. You're too happy. You don't know what's about to happen.
And then yes, you are. I just felt like, yeah, you got it.
I was thinking,
stupid, but it's like,
if you cut out some of the slow-mo in this movie, it would be about an hour and 20 minutes long.
Okay, so going back to what I was saying, your cards are on the table now about this movie. I'll say this. I had not seen this in a long time. I was watching it and I was like, this is kind of good. Like I didn't. Okay.
Can I tell you something? I was about a half an hour in, and literally I was like, is this bad? I think it might be bad.
Dude, that's funny. I mean, well, I'm not measuring it against speed or anything like that.
George Gallo, by the way, how about that?
What's that? Sorry.
George Gallo, he came up with the story. He came up with it as like a comedy. This was
We should get into that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get there. But sorry, finish your thought.
Well, real quick. So I was watching it like 45 minutes in, and I thought, I'm having fun. Like, I mean, it is what it is, but I'm having a good time. I am completely going with these guys' charisma. There's actually a plot to this. I think it's well directed. Like, I really do. Well, we can get into that even more, Michael Bay and everything. But then it hit about the hour mark.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, like it just suddenly like came to a really, really like creeping pace. They were leaning way too heavily into the improvising.
Yes.
And I was like, let's go, let's go, let's go. Like I was losing the urgency. There's the whole thing where, you know, Téa Leoni thinks Martin Lawrence is Will Smith's character, which is fun for a minute, but it drags on and on. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then the second half of this became a chore.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, that's such a shame. I mean, really, this movie's 2 hours, which when I saw that, I didn't feel bad about. But I think this should have been about like a 1 hour, 40-minute movie.
Oh, I agree with that. So I had this experience yesterday with Speed where the movie ends and I'm like, how is this movie only 2 hours long?
I know.
You know? And then I'm about halfway through Bad Boys. I'm like, how is this movie 2 hours long?
Yes. So yeah, I really enjoyed the first half of it, knowing what it was, like a Michael Bay, let's just have fun with these guys kind of charisma movie. But then it just indulges too much in the back half, and I was just ready for it to get moving.
It's very much a product of the Simpson Bruckheimer ethos, which that right there situates it very much in its time. And I think, by the way, Michael Bay is kind of an interesting case study, right? Because he ends up being kind of a nexus. You know what I mean? He's very much of the Tony Scott visual school.
100%. Yep.
Right. But very much amped up. And I mean, there is a school of Michael Bay that we can look at all the people who came after him, you know, Dominic Sena, Simon West, etc. So he really did uncork something. And that's worth mentioning. I mean, he was what, like 27, 28 when he made this movie?
I mean, that was the thing. I was watching this and I was trying to imagine if in 1995 I didn't know who this director was. Even watching this sequence, this heist sequence, you go, oh, this director has a voice. Like right off the bat. I mean, it's competency with flash. You know what I mean? Like, and it's funny. I literally wrote down the closest this reminds me of is maybe Tony Scott, and then I put Bay as Tony Scott chugging a Red Bull.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's like even his insert shots are interesting. You know what I mean? Like they're from a certain angle, definitely with some sort of lens, making things pop out. I mean, this is a talented visual director.
I think here's the problem fundamentally. I think that Michael Bay's aesthetic and even I'll say the charisma of the lead actors are not suited to the frame on which they it's like building a modern, it's like building Batman the Ride on a wooden old-timey roller coaster frame.
Sure.
Right. In that the script is absolute dog shit. I mean, it's like actively offensive to me.
Well, it's funny reading how much that they improvised because they realized they didn't have time because, you know, to make this script appropriate for the cast that they had, right? It was written for other people.
Yeah.
And so they were like, well, maybe we can plus this thing along the way. And I'd say, being, you know, honest, I mean, I think some of it works, but to mixed results, ultimately.
I think what's so weird is that the storyline, the Mike and Marcus storyline and the sort of the sitcom hijinks, that's like a Bad Boys sequel storyline. You know what I mean? Like we don't know these characters enough to do the I'm pretending to be him and you're pretending to be me thing, you know?
Zachy, that is wow. Sometimes, man, like our brains are so linked. This reminded me of the Flintstones movie where I thought this plot should be the second movie. Like we need the first movie. And it doesn't even have to be their meet cute necessarily, but we do need that movie that establishes. Going to the Flintstones thing, my problem was they were at Fred and Barney are at odds with one another throughout most of the movie, and I think I don't want to see that in movie one. I want to see them as friends, tested, whatever. And then in the second movie, you can start playing with that. You know, in the superhero movie, the second movie is usually where the superhero is like, can I actually be Spider-Man? Maybe I should divorce myself from the thing I know and love and the thing you know and love. You do that in the second movie. And it's funny, I had that same feeling watching this. The whole having fun with their identities being swapped, that feels like a second movie plot.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah. But here's the thing. This movie began its life as a comedy called Bulletproof Hearts. Mm-hmm. Which was intended as a vehicle for the box office dynamo that was John Lovitz and Dana Carvey.
Isn't that wild?
So that is so fascinating to me on so many levels that it was initially envisioned and so you take that as a comedy and you say yeah, and then John Lovitz has to pretend to be Dana Carvey and Dana Carvey has to pretend to be John Lovitz. Like I can see that. Right, and then they turn it into a serious thing like that. To me, that's like, you know what that's like? That's like being like, oh, you know, Mission Impossible, you know, whatever 3. You know, initially that was actually a comedy script for Dana Carvey called Master of Disguise, and we like took it.
Yeah,
right. That's what that's like. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it has this. It's so broadly this film is so broadly tropey in terms of all this cop movie stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so that makes sense if it's a comedy.
That is so true. Yeah.
Because I'm just like these 3 actors right here. They you know, they should have herniated discs for how they're holding the movie up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right, Joey Pants, Martin Lawrence, Will Smith. Because I mean, they're going back and forth. I mean, Marg Helgenberger as Captain Stereotype over here.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, I'm the tough as nails, but also kind of hot. Like,
well, it's funny because just she is so foxy in this movie. Like her haircut, like the way she's presenting herself, and I was like, that is so Michael Bay in a way. You know what I mean? It's not like she's just a woman doing her job. She's also like kind of like, you know, like it just kind of made me laugh. I couldn't put my finger on it. That's the best way I can express it. But yeah. But you know what's fascinating in trying to read more about this whole John Lovitz Dana Carvey version of it, which by the way, did you read why it fell apart? Part of the reason, at least?
No.
Apparently Dana Carvey was horrified when he was taken out by Don Simpson. And like I guess they took Don Simpson took Carvey and Lovitz to Vegas to celebrate the upcoming movie, and Carvey was like horrified by Simpson's behavior and just that
because he just his drug induced excesses.
Exactly. And so he dropped out of the project.
Really?
And then it just put it in.
Good for Dana.
Actually, I kind of admire it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like this is not my bag. This is not a universe I feel comfortable existing in, just as a person.
You can see Lovitz being like, hey, wait a minute. What are you doing?
Exactly. What about me? But you know what's funny too is I read that during the Carvey Lovitz era of this, Bay was also test shooting some scenes, trying to give an example of the style he was going for. Right. And there was, I don't know, derision over that. But what fascinated me about that was, wait. Michael Bay was going to make the comedy version with Dana Carvey and John Lovitz? I assumed there was a different director, different actors, and then this script somehow Bay was like, I know what to do with this. I'll cast these 2 hot TV actors who are really charismatic. No. Like Bay was going to do that version. That's weird.
Hey, it's your first job, man.
You know what? I would love to see it, to be honest.
Right? The screen test or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of an example. I can't off the top of my head, but having this action visualist kind of guy making a comedy could be kind of interesting.
Well, arguably Tony Scott doing Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. I mean, I think I'm picturing the comedy even broader and more sitcom like you were saying. But yeah, no, you're right. That's a good example.
There's Michael Imperioli pre Sopranos.
I liked him in this scene, by the way. He felt very natural and nervous, and that was something I wrote down. Actually, I wrote down some thoughts as I was watching it, and when I was looking at this movie more favorably, I did appreciate sort of the natural lived-inness I was feeling from some of the performances.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the lighting in this scene right here. This is great.
Dude, I wrote down a bunch of notes about this scene, period. This scene is really shows what an artist Michael Bay can be. Every shot in this scene is interesting. Look at the fan in the background and how it's smoked out. So you got the lights going behind Will Smith. You know what I mean? And then when he's sitting down with this woman to talk, there's like a fan running behind her, which gives some visual business. There's a guy who's a silhouette in the background practicing boxing. See it? Those two guys sparring in the background. There's a fan behind in the background and one closer. It's artful. I mean, it's really beautiful. And that's something that a lot of directors, I don't think about. They're not painting their canvas. They're not filling in the canvas to its fullest potential. And so you got to give it to him. I mean, he really is a talented visual director.
I think, considering the fact that despite what I think is just not a very good script, he was able to turn it into something. He was able to give visual interest, no doubt. I think that's an achievement. And yeah, to the point you were making earlier, would Michael Bay be, all caps Michael Bay, had this starred Dana Carvey, John Lovitz? I'm going to say probably not.
Right.
I have no idea, but success begets success, right? And when you think about it, I mean, this began kind of a remarkable run for Michael Bay, where I think up until The Island,
right? Yeah.
Which was like 05 probably. Every one of his movies was a success.
Yeah,
That
woman, by the way, I don't know what she is, like an assistant or something in the office.
Yeah,
played by Anna Thompson.
Yeah,
she owned that character in the 90s. That sort of beautiful but troubled woman you kind of worried about. It's yeah, she seems really nice. I enjoy her at the office, but I'm a little worried about her home life. That was the character she played in every single movie. I remember in The Crow. Yes.
Yep. This part right here, I remember, was in all the trailers.
Yes.
Here to borrow some brown sugar.
It's really funny. Yeah. But you can imagine this scene on the page and then imagine, hey, why don't you guys do your thing and let's see where we end up.
Yeah.
And I think this scene is indicative of what makes this movie remembered all these years later and why we're still getting sequels. They're funny individually, they're funny together.
Yeah.
In a cop movie where they find a corpse and they're trying to get to the bottom of something, they're still making it theirs.
Yeah.
This scene is very much them. Yeah. I can see why we're getting a fourth movie all these years later by these guys.
I do think certainly in this film, there's much more of an effort to kind of situate both of them as the cool guys.
Sure.
And as the films have gone on, it's much more the focus is divided, where Marcus is the comic relief,
right,
and Mike is the badass,
right.
And as I was watching, I was wondering how much of that was contractual in this. I got to have my glamour shot, and
sure. In this one specifically, you mean?
In this one, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they went to Martin Lawrence first. He did not want Will Smith. He did not want it to be Will Smith.
Do we know why?
Yes, but I think mainly because they were both on sitcoms at the time. But Will Smith was on a family sitcom. He was known as a family-friendly rapper.
He was kind of a goofball.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
His songs were parents just don't understand.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And so I would imagine that Martin was can he keep up in a R-rated action movie?
And that was kind of his persona too, where he's I don't curse.
That's right.
In his music. He even said so much. And so I to this day, I still do find it a little jarring when I see Will Smith cursing and stuff because I'm like,
Right.
oh, that's not the Will Smith. Because I mean, he was cemented in my mind as Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Right.
And he's good at it. I think he's really good as Mike Lowry. But it does still. I have this. Oh yeah. He's playing. Yeah, he's an actor.
It's this sequence here. It's so funny because they have to squeeze in the character development,
Yes.
and so it feels very. I don't remember if it's this scene, maybe it's a later scene, but like all the like, hey, just because my parents left me all this money, and it feels very screenwritery,
Yeah. You can picture that, like you were saying earlier. If this was the sequel, and in the first movie, it's like you've been partnered with Mike Lowry, and it's like, oh, that kid with the silver spoon in his ass, like, when his whatever's on the line, he's not tough enough. He's not built for this. I am, and then you see that they prove themselves to one another, and so yeah, like you say, you have to squeeze it into this.
Because there's a line later where Mike is like, we've been partners for a few years, but I've been your boy all my life, or something like that. And I was like, well, that's interesting, right? Like,
me too. I was like, wait, what does that mean? Like, what
is that exactly?
Cool. Yeah, I would almost love a flashback of them on the playground, like seeing two young actors playing them as kids.
Do like a digital Wayans Brothers style flashback
with their adult heads on their body, like Little Man.
Yeah,
actually, I would love that. But I was reading
this right here where he says, "I love you, man," and he's like, "F you," and then when he says it at the end, I find it very funny that like Michael Bay had like a fight with Will Smith.
Yeah, I was surprised about that too.
Down, drag out because he didn't want to say that.
I thought that was really fascinating. Right? I mean, that feels so like a period between periods of movies.
So is that like a no homo thing? Is that?
I was going to say, because like we were just watching Lethal Weapon 2.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where, Riggs and Murtaugh think they're going to die, and they're about to say I love you, but they don't, because that's just not what those guys would do. But they do say it. They say it with their eyes. And I complimented it. I thought it was very well done in character in that film. But it's just interesting. So this feels on that side of that sentiment with men in movies. But then a couple years later, movies would go full into the bromance and the bro love, and say all men saying I love you to one another, and sort of celebrating that. And I thought that was interesting. This movie, it's like in a moment between, the moment shifts a bit, where
that's interesting.
It was kind of like okay for two hardened dudes to be like, no man, I love you too, like they won't say it. And so Smith, like it's in the script to whatever end, and Michael Bay is endorsing it, but it's interesting that Smith is like, no man, my character can't be seen that way.
Well, and doubly, I mean, he played a gay character in 6 Degrees of Separation. That was before this.
That's true. Right? Yeah, that's interesting.
Although I believe he refused to have like a kissing scene.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, but regardless, yeah, I mean, it feels, my point is, it feels like a weird thing to get hung up on, but whatever.
Yeah.
So here's Téa Leoni.
Dude, we were texting about this yesterday, and I found it fascinating. There are shots where she literally looks like Megan Fox.
Yeah.
And then 10 years later, Michael Bay would be casting Megan Fox. I was like, oh, he has a type.
Yeah, and then remember in one of them Transformers with Mark Wahlberg, that Vivian Wembley, the character, I don't remember the actor's name. Another Megan Fox off the assembly line.
I'm gonna have to Google her. I don't remember her.
Yeah.
But I can imagine.
She's what's that actress's name? This is gonna bug me now. Téa Leoni. At the time this movie came out, I believe she had already been in a sitcom. I think it's called The Naked Truth.
I'm seeing Vivian Wembley now. Okay. This is probably the first time I saw her.
Yeah, I feel like she had. I'm trying to remember, because it was no. You know what? No, first time I saw her, it was she was on a show called The Naked Truth. That was later. She was on a show called Flying Blind, which was on Fox. That was the first time I saw her, and that was from 92 to 93. So I was like 13. I already knew who. I was like a Téa Leoni aficionado by this time.
Yeah. She was in, when was Flirting with Disaster? That was around here a couple years later, right?
I feel like that was before this.
Oh, was it really?
Flirting with Disaster was it was after. You're right.
I think 97 is my guess, or
Yeah.
something like that.
But it's given the totality of characters Téa Leoni has played, like the level of just I'm so over this shit that her character conveys. I feel like that's actually Téa being like, what am I doing here?
You know what I like about her is she definitely has those sort of model looks.
Yes.
But she is a different type of personality than you might expect. And that comes certainly from her and what Téa Leoni brings. But, even just like her voice is a little huskier and like, I'm not putting up with this crap.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing versus the sort of, what have I got myself into? You guys are crazy. A little more damsel in distressy version of that you can imagine. I mean, she certainly is like handcuffed to wheels of cars a lot, not allowed to tag along, but she adds a brassiness that I think is, comes from whatever Leone is bringing.
Yeah, let's just say on balance, this movie does not treat women particularly well.
Well, here we go. Buckle up.
Case in point. Right?
This is so dark. I mean, you've seen this in movies before, but I found this really sad watching this woman die. And then, of course, it's not enough for her to just die and have that be enough that we're horrified by that. It's like the whole has to crash through a glass table, almost like making it artful and beautiful, her death or something.
And Brian, all of this obviously verbatim in the John Lovitz, Dana Carvey version of this, right? It would not a sentence changed, of course. She's my model friend. She's dead. What do you mean? But it's like everything.
That's hilarious. I kind of want to see that. I wish I could go to a multiverse just for 2 hours to go watch that version.
Just hop over, yeah.
See what that looks like.
I wanted. By the way, I like Checky Cario here as the villain. He's remember he was in The Patriot a couple of years later.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you've seen The Patriot, right?
I have, but I don't remember who he played.
He's the French guy.
Oh, man, it's been a while, I'll be honest. But
yeah,
my eye was drawn to the other henchman. I think Vic Manny is his name. Because he's interesting. He's got the look, but he also feels not quite of this universe. Like a little like, whatever you say, kind of a feeling where everyone else is like very sinister. And then I found out that he was Don Simpson's bodyguard in real life.
Oh, how funny.
And I was like, there it is.
That's interesting because his character gets kind of like a glorified death.
Simpson is like,
which felt weird, right? Like they wanted to give the body his death is meant to signify something like, oh, it's this guy, he's getting his. And you're like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know him that well.
Yeah, I mean he's fine. Like I say, he's got the look, but there was just something. When you have an athlete in a film or
totally
a voiceover role, and you're like, oh, that person's an athlete, aren't they?
Yeah, it's like when Nancy Kerrigan hosts SNL. You're like, well, this probably isn't gonna. We're gonna grade this one on a curve.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just, I got to give it to, this is a thing I wanted to point out too, which is I was saying, look, this movie is stylized, but I do feel there is still a little bit more of a grounded, lived in feel to this movie, which I kind of picked up on and was like, oh, I admire that about this, which really makes the second movie stand out in a different way because that one feels like it's shot like a early 2000s Victoria's Secret commercial.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like that is a music video. This has interesting elements. By the way, look at the strobe light that keeps going off in this scene, which is supposed to be the evidence camera,
right,
or whatever, but it's used as an aesthetic just to make every shot more interesting, which I dig. I think that's a cool idea.
By the way, Brian, real quick, is it just me or does Joey Pants look like he's like 24 years old in this movie?
He looks good,
right?
He looks good.
I'm like when I was a kid, he looked, like an older guy. I'm like, I look like I could be his uncle,
It's weird. That's funny you say that. It's weird because it's post Goonies.
Yes.
Which he
made.
Fugitive. Yeah, but pre-Matrix.
Pre-Matrix. That's true.
Yeah.
You know what's funny, Brian? As I'm watching this, I'm what my mind is brought to is like you and me and our buddies shooting around and clearly trying to emulate all the flourishes that Michael Bay brought to his movies, right? Because like that's when we were doing this shit. It was like late 90s, right?
100%.
Right?
I mean, the whole iconic shot later where the camera's low and circling around them in like slow motion. Absolutely. And then, yeah, if someone draws a gun, it's like, the camera's tilted and it's pushing in. There's a little fisheye sort of aesthetic to it. Absolutely. I mean, we were right in that moment when we were picking up cameras trying to make stuff.
And to add to that, like Will Smith and Martin Lawrence look so young here that it reminds me of like us trying to act like all like older than we are. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like they look like kids in this. Certainly Will does.
Yeah. No, definitely. Actually,
hear that? That's not the movie. That's real life.
I did. I guess it's worth pointing out that the madame that's about to get killed there, like a minute ago. I thought it was interesting how she's like on her silk sheets wearing this little nightie and she's posed in this. She's just speaking on the phone, but she's posed in this sort of like sexy pose, just talking on the phone, and that stood out to me a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're leaning into where Michael Bay will go full throttle in his future movies when he's shooting women.
I mean, that's really like, I feel like he's the only one who did that to that extent, where it's like very obviously sexualizing his female performers in ways that are just like, all right, dude, like let's dial it back a notch, Yeah,
and I mean, and I know you'd agree. I mean, women have been sexualized since movies have began, right? I mean, they're definitely, but he goes to this degree where he, like a Victoria's Secret commercial is the way he shoots his women. Yeah, it's a choice.
Was it this movie or Armageddon that Megan Fox, wasn't she in it, or she was going to be in it, like in one of the club scenes or something?
That may be Bad Boys 2?
Yeah, possibly. That would make sense, right? Because that was 2003. I guess that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my guess.
And she was like just like 17 or something.
Or if that? I think she might have been pretty young.
Yeah.
But yeah, people discovered that she was a background person that he shot basically dancing under a waterfall. It's like some sort of random insert shot he just threw into like a club scene.
See, so this right here, this begins the sitcom plot of this movie, right?
Which, I remembered this conceit, but I had forgotten that this was like the plot of the
Holy
film.
Shit, it's interminable, man. I'm like, dude, this is like a 20-minute riff, maybe.
And you know what's funny? I remember having the feeling when I watched The Phantom Menace for the first time in 1999 and the whole Natalie Portman's character pretending that she wasn't the queen.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, because I went into that movie thinking, oh, this is going to be a new classic. I have to add this next to the other three on the shelf. And when that was part of the plot, I thought, oh, really? Like that's just like a trope that I was like, oh, so when I watch this for 100 times, I'm going to have to, how long are they going to have to make me do the whole she's pretending to be someone else thing? Because I just immediately feels tired even when it's introduced.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is again, it's if this is the John Lovitz Dana Carvey movie, it totally makes sense.
Totally, which is funny, by the way, because I think Dana Carvey was supposed to be Mike Lowry, which is just funny to imagine him being suave, and
so
wearing silk shirts and like.
I mean, if nothing else, that takes your mind back to a point where Dana Carvey was that big of a draw, right? Remember, we were putting comedy stars in these action movies, right? Remember, Adam Sandler was in Bulletproof.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, shit, Damon Wayans was in, Last Boy Scout.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that was the thing we were doing for a little while. I mean, it makes sense because Eddie Murphy pointed the way towards that, right?
Totally.
And then next thing you know, you had Joe Piscopo and all these people doing these action movies.
Yeah. Joe Piscopo? What did he do?
Joe Piscopo did an action movie. I cannot tell you the name of that action movie.
Can I be honest with you? This is where my age gets a little, dances on the edge of something. I know who Joe Piscopo is, And I know
Yes.
people use him as an example of sort of a shooting star in SNL who did not, explode into a bright firework or something. But
Yeah.
I don't remember that. So I actually don't literally have the frame of reference. I just know him as a reference.
So yeah, he really, because he was on SNL during the post Lorne Michaels, pre Lorne Michaels era.
Yeah.
And this is post Gene Domanian when Dick Ebersol came on, took over, and that show managed to survive largely on the back of Piscopo and Eddie Murphy and a couple other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there was the assumption that, oh yeah, this guy's gonna go to new heights, and certainly that's what happened with Eddie Murphy, right? He was on it for like a season. He was like 19 years old,
Right.
and Piscopo, obviously that did not happen. SNL had that one joke where Bart is watching like Weekday Night Live or whatever it is, right? And he's like, oh, it hasn't been the same since Joe Piscopo left, which is like a joke, because back then when that episode of The Simpsons aired, that was funny because for Bart that would have been his golden age.
That's so funny.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the joke. Like, why would it like it's not like it was that great when he was on there. But yeah, he was in a movie with Treat Williams called Dead Heat. I remember that. And various other things.
Yeah.
Now he's like a right-wing talk radio host.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's true.
Huh. Well, Piscopo's still Piscopoing. I don't know.
So at this time, now, were you a fan of Martin, the show, not the person?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Definitely.
You used to watch it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Damn, Gina.
Damn. Yeah. Exactly. I remember the theme song. I liked the theme song.
Martin.
Yeah. I remember that.
Totally. He played ahead of all those Eddie Murphy comedies. Nutty Professor. He was playing multiple characters.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
He'd get in like drag and slight makeup, maybe. I don't know, but he was playing multiple characters.
Yeah, Shanae.
Yeah.
Right? And the little kid with the snot running down his face.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. Well, I looked up, I was just curious, the dates for those shows. So Fresh Prince of Bel-Air aired from September 1990 to May 1996.
Yep.
Which is much longer than I remember. And you know what? I have a memory. So I was 10 in 1990. And I remember watching The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and it feeling like one of my first, this is my show. Like I watch shows with my parents, whatever. But like this is the thing I look forward to every week and tune into. I remember feeling that about Fresh Prince. And then Martin aired from August 1992 to May 1997. So
yep, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Martin started very shortly after I moved back to the States from Saudi Arabia.
Oh, okay.
So like that fall, I remember. And yeah, Fresh Prince they used to show over there in Saudi.
Oh, okay.
So the first couple seasons, like a handful, but you remember the first season or so was not that good.
I mean, it's kind of all blended together in my mind.
Yeah, but it took Will about half a season to figure out how to act.
Yeah. I mean, he always had that charisma, but he got really loose along the way and really came into his own.
I mean, if you watch Fresh Prince from beginning to end, you can see the remarkable learning curve because he started with he's mouthing other people's lines while they're saying it's,
That's right. Yeah.
And then he's like, how come my dad don't love me, man? And you're like, why don't his dad love him?
Dude, I mean, yeah. I mean, I think about for me again, like talking about when I was 13. That's probably like the first melodrama I had seen with a character I loved in a comedy.
Yeah.
I'm certain I cried.
It was like Ben Vereen as his dad, right?
Yeah,
I remember that one.
It's good stuff. That was a great show to my memory. I haven't rewatched it, but it's funny going back and looking at clips. You're like, this is still funny, and it was I think old because it would break the fourth wall all the time.
Yes,
it was a really innovative sitcom.
Oh, well, and that formula was so sturdy where it's like the hip young black guy and kind of the stuffed shirt black guy who he's kind of rivals with, right? Will and Carlton. They basically use that same formula for Jamie Foxx and the Jamie Foxx show.
Oh, funny. I
You know,
I remember that existing, but I don't know if I ever saw it.
yeah, it was kind of the same thing, you know, and it's because it works, right? Because you can easily imagine Jamie Foxx playing a Will-esque character,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And then you have the guy who's like, "Well, what are you doing, Jamie?" You know, kind of.
Right. That's so funny.
But that's, I mean,
yeah.
the fact that right now in 2024, slap incident notwithstanding, Will Smith remains one of the most recognizable faces on the planet.
Yeah.
That's amazing to think about. And that journey started right here in terms of Will being a box office star.
And he has admitted that he was very, very calculated in his stardom journey, right? Like, people have had much success with sci-fi action films. People have had much success with doing something against types. Like, he had a roadmap.
Wow.
And it's incredible how well it worked. And it's in later years, I mean, he's become kind of a little more difficult to wrap your head around. And it's like, well, is he genuine, or is he kind of phony? Like, does even he know who he is? And, you know, then the whole slap thing at the Oscars, like, I wouldn't call it a complicated relationship, but I am forever endeared to him. That's basically my feelings on him. But it's been sort of interesting, maybe a little sad, kind of learning more about him throughout the years, because I love him, and I you know, whatever that parasocial sort of thing is between me and him since 1990. But then seeing like, oh, his life seems kind of maybe just made for the camera. Does he even get to be himself? And then just seeing all that pent up anger that came out in that incident, and you just kind of hope he's okay. You know, I don't know if I should feel like maybe he should go away for a while, or maybe he you know what I mean? Like, I'm rooting for him. I guess that's what
he kind of has, right? I mean, he was in a little bit of exile.
Yeah, and you know, he repented a little bit, and you hope it's true. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just been interesting. He's an interesting figure.
I think. Look, I think his charisma is undeniable, right?
It's off the charts.
And and he's somebody who you enjoy watching, and I think certainly when you take in totality the sheer number of types of roles he's played, right? Because it's not like a Dwayne Johnson thing where he's like playing The Rock, you know, every movie. Like, he's done different types of stuff, you know, and sometimes it works, sometimes it works a little bit less. It's not like every movie he's Agent J, you know what I mean?
Totally. I mean, even Pursuit of Happiness, which I haven't seen since it came out, but I remember really liking that movie so much that I actually went and read the book that it was based on, because I just found the story so compelling. I thought he was great. Yeah. So yeah, he can do those straight drama roles also. Yeah,
exactly. And so I think, you know, or if it's a rom-com like Hitch, and I mean, you know, it's like he's always watchable, even in After Earth, which I thought was kind of a turd, but like he was fine in it, you know.
You know, I never saw that. That
Cypher Rage, that's his character.
You think I would have seen it because it's a Shyamalan movie.
That's right.
That came out the same weekend as Now You See Me.
Oh, right. The movie you worked on.
Yeah, I worked on that for a year and a half of my life. So we were like, oh, geez, like a Will Smith movie's coming out on the same day as us. And then it worked out that we trounced that movie. But
there you go.
But yeah, so I think in my mind that was always like those people, you know, it's like the crosstown rivalry or something. And so I never ended up watching it.
They should have called that one Now You Don't.
You're right.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's what everyone says the Now You See Me 2 should have been called, which I agree.
Yes, I agree with that.
But anyway,
this actor, by the real quick, the guy Chet, the doorman here, that's he's Mocha Joe from the Curb Your Enthusiasm later seasons. I don't know if you've seen any of those, but he was also on Becker. His name is Savio Guerra, I believe.
He shines.
Saverio Guerra. Yeah, he's fun.
Yeah, like you can imagine this was just like a thing, and they're like, hire a funny guy who's good at improvising and go. And I think he does really well. I was worried he was going to get killed later.
Brian, you know what they say? There's no small parts, only small actors.
That's true.
He makes a meal of it.
He does.
So I kind of Joe Pesci, Leo Getz energy, right?
Totally.
Right?
Yes. And I remember enjoying him yesterday based on what I'm saying right now. But as I'm watching this, I kind of looked away from the screen for a little bit, and then I looked over and it's still going. And I'm wondering if this is one of those things where maybe you like cut it in half and you could get the movie.
Yeah, it's like whenever I watch a Judd Apatow movie, I'm like, this funny scene would be hilarious if it was half as long.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, he was the king of that.
Yeah.
He probably would have these great hour 50-minute movies, but they're all like 2 hours and 20 minutes. Yeah. Oh man, but even look at that, like putting a light so it goes through the banister there, so you get those stripes on the walls. This is what Bay does, man. Like he is a visual artist for sure.
The thought I have is that there was this pipeline in the 80s and 90s where music video directors would prove their chops.
Yeah.
And then they'd upgrade to movies, or television. And I'm like, music videos don't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they do, but not
really. They're not. No. They don't drive the conversation.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that's like Joel Schumacher. He started out doing music videos, I think, didn't he?
I'd believe it.
Yeah, I think that's true. A lot of these guys. I mean, it's you have a very short window of time to make to be distinctive in some way.
Fincher is a famous example of that.
Fincher's a good example. Yeah.
But you know what I love is Bay's style is plussing this movie. You know what I mean? Like it's not taking me. I don't feel like I'm watching a music video. I do feel like I'm watching a movie that has style that is additive to what's going on, to the characters. It's capturing them in a way that's making them shine. And The Rock, I think, his best movie. Still, the style is on full display, but it's not taking me out of the movie. It's additive to the movie. It's making the movie what it is. But then he would start getting high on his own supply, and they just became, just bonkers, and the visuals were trouncing on whatever story was apparently, underneath it.
I think, and we've said this before. I mean, I think The Rock is probably the perfect amount of Michael Bay.
Totally, because it is more, capital M, more than this movie visually, but it works.
The Rock benefits obviously from just a whole bunch of hitters in the cast, and it's got a good script.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
right.
Great
and I think that's the dilemma with this movie is this too. It's a stacked cast, but they are trying to spin gold out of straw.
Yeah, sure. And then it really speaks to, I think a lot of that is covered visually, because you're taken with the how dynamic everything looks, keeping everything moving, and the charisma of the two leads, which you just can't do. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I was trying to really crystallize my thoughts on Michael Bay as I was watching this yesterday. And I just thinking of where he started and how much I loved what he was doing. And then where he is now, where you just get these, what was that movie? I couldn't even finish it on Netflix. I don't even remember.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. There's a number in the title.
Yeah. And I was just like, I wrote down. Yeah. I just wrote down, I was like, Michael Bay is talented. He's like that talented son who could take the world by storm, but he also enjoys huffing paint. I think that's Michael Bay to me, unfortunately. You know what I mean?
That's feels apt.
Yeah, I wish he would scale back a little bit. Well, Ambulance,
I think was pretty great. Actually.
Pretty, for me, it was like that was pretty darn good. That was pretty darn good.
It's funny because speaking of Speed, I was watching Speed and I was making that comment. I was like, man, they just don't make them like this. And I was telling Hamza, I was like, I feel like Ambulance is the closest we've gotten to not in terms of story, but like aesthetically, something that resembles Speed.
Yeah, what I love about
recent. Yeah.
No, sorry. I was just going to add to your. I think the thing I would say about Speed that to me makes it maybe one of it top 2 or 3 action films for me personally is that it does have that sizzle and there is style that you can be aware of as you're watching it, but it never pulls away from the story. It never overshadows the story. It's only additive. And the
Oh, Brian,
characters are great.
I'm aware. I watched it just before this, so believe
Yeah.
me, I'm aware.
I mean, Ambulance, I remember feeling I was into the conceit of it, and the visuals were cool, but I did feel like the visuals were capital C cool. So I was thinking about the visuals a little bit more than the logic
Sure.
or what I was caring
and
about.
just to be clear, I'm not remotely saying that those two movies should be mentioned in the same breath. I'm just like, man, it's been such a dry spell lately. I feel like Ambulance is as close as we've got lately to something that's even trying to be an old school action movie like these.
No, definitely. I mean, where he has been, and that feels like him, being a little more thoughtful about
kind of detoxing a little bit.
Yeah. And I hope he
Slightly.
continues to. I stand. He's
well.
a good director. I just don't love all his movies.
So Teresa Randall here, who plays Teresa, she was also in Space Jam. She played Michael Jordan's wife.
She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Remember in Space Jam how Michael Jordan lives in like a suburban neighborhood and like in like Skokie or something?
Yes.
He picks up his son from the bus stop, and it's like, okay, I'm sure that's evocative of Michael Jordan's life circa 1995 or whenever.
Yeah, no, you and I think we've both been to his house, right? I mean, it was in Deerfield or something, and it's literally like a hedge with a gate that has a 23 on it, and then a laser scope that appears on your forehead if you stand there too long. Like that. He's not living in Skokie. That's so funny. And then he just comes into this completely normally decorated house, like, "Hey, honey."
Yeah, exactly. That was circa. That was like right after this. It was like a year later.
Wow.
Yeah, I think just to your point about Bay's aesthetic, little things like just having the camera moving as it's in front of this shelf of beakers and stuff. I mean, just little ways of drawing in audience interest. I mean, that's the stuff that stands out, and certainly it didn't. Michael Bay didn't invent it. I mean, this was very much the Simpson Bruckheimer school.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said earlier, I mean, he really hypercharged something that we saw playing out for the remainder of this decade.
Oh, he was hugely influential. Absolutely. Yeah. Something else along those lines that, like you're saying, he didn't invent, but I noticed a lot in this movie that I love, and I noticed it in other movies, and I always actually right there, see the flame on the beaker?
Mm-hmm.
So what I love is I noticed a couple times in this movie, they'll shoot a scene sort of like wide or medium, but when they go close on someone, they don't move the flower pot out of the way, or they don't move the chandelier out of the way. Like I can imagine shooting something and being like, all right, now we're going close. And since we're close on him, let's move this thing off the table because it's kind of in the foreground. But he keeps that stuff. He keeps a bit of business in the foreground, which makes you feel even more immersed in the reality of that location.
That's a really good point.
I love that stuff. He does that throughout this.
See, so at this point we're just under an hour in, and this whole identity swap thing just stretches on and on.
It's feeling a little tired, and I think we're about 53-ish minutes in, and I do remember thinking, like I said, I was like all in. I was like, this is fun. I forgot how fun this is, and now it's slowing to a crawl a bit.
Yeah, I think to that point, I mean, I just don't think the edifice is strong enough to support this runtime, right?
Yeah.
At this point, you want to be sort of in wrap it up mode a little bit.
Yeah.
This whole no homo thing here.
Oh yeah.
It's, I don't know. Maybe it's like 30 years of perspective where I'm like, all right, yeah, I get it.
It did kind of make me think, wait, why does Will Smith have pictures of himself? And
I was thinking that exact thing. I was like, I don't have pictures of myself in my house like that.
No, if I do, it's like, I mean, I can understand if it's you singing the national anthem at the Super Bowl or something. That's one thing. But like,
no, it's like the one thing where he's saluting or he got an award or something. Okay, but it's like a whole shelf of pictures of him. I don't know. That seems vaguely egocentric to me.
Yeah, it feels kind of weird. Yeah. And this is okay, the whole vegetarian thing, but this is literally like a minute and a half conversation about why he shouldn't eat bologna.
Yeah,
I'm kind of ready to get
and again, Téa Leoni has this "I'm over this" look on her face, which Like I have to believe that's her actually feeling like God. You know, she's just kind of picturing the house she's going to buy or something. You know?
That's funny.
This is the future star of Madam Secretary. You know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, you know, or you'd want to, at least at this point, because you and I are both saying we're sort of bored of this idea of him trying to pretend he's someone he's not. Then she admits she knows. Or that whole scene where she's trying to like play seduce him later to see what he'll do.
Right.
Because she already knows. You do that now. And then
that's a really good point.
Right. Yeah. And then he admits it and they're like, but then Mike doesn't know. Or, you know what I mean? Like you can keep it up somehow, but you got to like put a spin on it at some point. Like it's not meant to sustain 45 minutes of running time.
Yeah. No, that's really it. Yeah. It is, you know, one is tempted to be like, oh, you know, it's just a buddy cop movie and just view it as such. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's fine. But I think here's my problem is for me, I'm going to compare any buddy cop movie, any first buddy cop movie to Lethal Weapon 1.
Totally.
And I'm like, well, I didn't feel the need to grade that one on a curve, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, I'm kind of, my view is, yes, you have great chemistry. Yes, you have great charisma, but the building blocks of the story still need to be able to support that, you know? Like imagine how much better this movie would have been with a better script.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You know, it's funny.
I give them credit, all the credit in the world, these guys, because they're hefting this thing up.
No, totally. I'm just even thinking editorial wise now. They show that scene where Martin Lawrence in the house that isn't his is cleaning up like dog crap because it pooped on like Mike's carpet. But like, wouldn't it be funnier? Like maybe we lose that and we keep the scene later, which is redundant, where Will Smith is like, why is there a stain on my carpet? And it's like, oh, the dog shit on the thing. But you know what? I'm not mad about it. Me being Mike Lowry. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, it's redundant.
You don't need the other thing.
Yeah. We don't need to see it happening. It's funnier to see him react to it later as a reveal.
That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting in that sense is Michael Bay, this is movie number 1. So it's not like he had final edit on this, right?
Sure.
So
I thought I read somewhere, by the way, that he was not happy with the edit.
Really?
Yeah. Like that was an argument, and I don't know. Sorry, dude, I totally cut you off. But
well, by the way, speaking of Lethal Weapon, this actor right here, Nestor Serrano, he's one of the sergeants who gets killed off in Lethal Weapon 2.
I thought he looked familiar.
And then his partner, by the way, he's one of those that guys. He actually Julio Oscar Machoso, who passed away a couple of years ago. I didn't realize that, but I mean, he had such a distinctive voice.
Yeah, totally.
The partner, the guy with the mustache.
Yeah.
But anyway, the observation I was going to make, I love how in this police department, you're just partnered by ethnicity, apparently.
That's so funny. That is hilarious.
It's like, we want to do the opposite of Lethal Weapon, so just put all similar races together.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
That's really funny. Well, so I want to call out, in this scene, they sang the I Want to Be Like Mike song.
Yes.
Which was, I think I take for granted the fact that I assume everyone knows what that is, but I mean, that just really speaks to the phenomenon of who Michael Jordan was, that there was literally a song that was released as a cassette single about a singer and children singing about how much they would love to be Michael Jordan.
Yep.
And it was so well known that they could name check it in this movie and everyone knows what that song is.
There was a time when everybody was like, I can't be a basketball player, but I can gamble like the wind. Because I think that's what he was known for at this time, or maybe a little bit after.
Well, that was the thing. They reference his retirement in this movie.
Yes, that's right.
Which made me think,
that's a stick pin in time, right?
Well, so I was curious about how the dates lined up. So I found out they shot this movie June 1994 to August 1994. And Jordan announced his retirement in October 1993. Okay. So while they were filming this, he was playing in the minor leagues for the White Sox.
That's right.
Then he announced his return to basketball, Jordan, in March of 1995, like 2 months before this movie came out.
How funny.
Isn't that funny? Just like that weird little.
Do you remember how initially when he came back, he was wearing a 45?
Yes.
And everybody went out and bought the 45 jersey, and he was like, "No, I'm not playing well. Must be the jersey." So he
Right.
went back to the 23.
Right.
Which to me, that's like remember in Superman 3 when like he tilts he straightens the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and then the guy
Yes.
who's selling all the
Like the
It's like all the people
vendor, selling the
with
trinkets.
the 45 jerseys.
Yes, I love that joke, by the way. And then by the end, he's like, you know? He's the only one on the planet who hates Superman.
That's
Hilarious.
Now after this, in terms of starring in movies, Martin Lawrence did a couple of other action movies. If you remember, he did. Damn it! What was that movie with Luke Wilson?
Blue Streak.
Blue Streak.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Good.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm a federale. Remember?
Kind of. I actually.
That's the only thing I remember about that movie. He's a cop. He's not. He's pretending to be a cop. He's a crook.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. And Dave Chappelle is like a guy he was in the gang with.
Okay. How funny.
I saw that, Brian. I saw that movie one time, summer of '99, probably. In Warrenville, but that's what I remember. And I remember Luke Wilson was in it. That's it.
Yeah.
But he did a couple of them. I mean, it's just, it's interesting to think of at this stage of their career, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith are roughly aligned, or maybe Martin is slightly, ahead. And it's just like, I mean, the plates have shifted so much since then.
Yeah. Well, he had that whole Big Mama series. I mean, that was pretty big. The Martin Lawrence thing.
Yeah. Who knew that needed to be a trilogy, right?
Yeah. I worked at the production company that made it. And so for a while I was sitting at like a cubicle next to that poster.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember watching that in the theater. That was summer of 2000. I believe Paul Giamatti is in that, I think. I'm pretty sure.
I am fairly certain that, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big Mama's House 2, 2006. Big Mamas, Like Father, Like Son in 2011. It's a multi-decade spanning franchise.
Generations.
Good Lord.
He had that night in King Arthur's Court, a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's
Wasn't it called
Court.
Black Knight?
Yeah, that's what it was. I remember that one too. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, you just don't hear much from him now, but I still find him, when we watched Bad Boys 3, I do remember thinking it was a little jarring because I hadn't seen him in a while. And I was like, oh, he's older. Like, he looks amazing, but he's a little slower. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And but he's still hilarious. I don't know why we don't see him more.
Well, he had some personal issues, didn't he?
Oh boy.
Remember?
Am I defending someone I shouldn't be?
No. Hopefully not. Well, no. I mean, there was, if you remember, in the last season of Martin, maybe you don't remember, but like him and like Tisha Campbell was like, I don't want to be in any scenes with him.
I forgot about that. That's right.
Yes.
Yep.
And I don't know what the exact backstory was, but obviously she's Martin's wife, so that was awkward.
Yeah.
And then he had some like mental health issues come up, as I recall.
Oh, interesting.
We're talking, I mean, this is like late 90s, I want to say.
Okay. Dude, just even look at the outside of that club. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen some cool looking clubs, but nothing that looks that intense. I love it.
I was about to say, this is the club that exists only in movies.
In a Michael Bay movie, especially. Yeah.
Yeah, specifically.
Yeah. Shoot, what was I gonna say? No, but yeah, I think that was really the scene that was when Will Smith or Mike Lowry is going through his apartment and seeing everything that's going wrong, and you shoot out this woman who tried to come and see me, and like, it just feels like if you had lost a bunch of things in the middle and just played up the comedy of how his life is being upended out of his control because of this ruse. Maybe you can speed things up a little. Like, this movie kind of plays like those DVD versions that were called director's cuts, but they really just added in scenes that initially slowed the movie down in the theaters. I mean, it's not the worst case in the world, but I just
No.
Yeah, that's cool, isn't it? I mean, just look at how interesting this shot is. It could just be them talking in front of a building on a street. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even that spotlight that's moving around in the background. It's great stuff.
I mean, what you really see is Michael Bay's probably like, look, I'm just going to shoot my shot,
Mm-hmm.
Because who knows if he gets another at bat, right?
Yeah.
That said, what did stick out to me is that this is shot in 1.85.
Yes.
And I found that somewhat jarring, to be honest. Like, I feel like his sensibility is too much for a frame this small.
I agree.
This weird orgy. Remember?
I was just gonna say. As long as we're to back up what we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't that take you back, Brian?
Yeah. And by the way, I don't want to sound like, there's nothing wrong with women looking sexy in movies. Like but there's like a difference between like an actress who's like, yeah, man, like, let me just own this role. This is the character. This is what I want to do. And then there's just sort of being sort of like drooling.
Yeah, just people with their butt cheeks hanging out and gyrating and whatnot. But you know what I mean about the aspect ratio? Is that just me? Am I crazy?
No. I think back in the day, especially when this was coming out, I thought everything should be in 235. That's cinema, baby. Yeah. And I've come to appreciate what 185 can do. But yes. I agree with you. For a Bay's aesthetic, 235 feels right.
Right? Yeah. It's weird because it feels crowded to me and manic, with all the camera bouncing around and doing all this stuff. Like I found myself getting, like, if I'm watching this on a big screen, I feel like my eyes would have been making like pinwheels.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I think of 185 as a more immerse in reality kind of thing because it more, well, I don't know I was gonna say more mirrors like the way our eyes see.
I think The Fugitive is 185.
Yeah. It's like, you're in the real world kind of a thing, and 235 is a little bit more
heightened.
Heightened, flashy, something. I mean, this is weird. Like, I'm not used to seeing Will Smith doing that. like winking at a stripper. So, by the way, I'm going to admit this. When they smashed that fish tank,
yes,
I had a thought where I was like, Michael Bay, man, he doesn't even care if he kills a fish as long as it looks cool. And I was wrong. Apparently, he was very concerned about those fish, and that was in that shot.
Look at that! Look at it, being all judgy.
Yeah, no, I'll admit it, and I kind of appreciated that. Actually, he was like, his main concern in that was like saving those fish right after that shot.
That right there, that makes me almost forgive Michael Bay for Pain and Gain.
Dude, I knew just when there was a little pause, I was about to be like, Pain and Gain. I don't know why. That was the first movie that came to mind.
So what is Téa Leoni even doing here? Right, this just like, what's her end game here?
I don't remember. Is she avenging a friend?
Does she think she's gonna shoot the guy? Like, I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Which I don't feel like I've seen in her character her like bubbling beneath the surface.
Yeah.
Revenge sort of feeling.
I think the problem fundamentally is that the connection to Max, like, we don't have the connection to Max.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
so, right.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would kind of like that if she was a little bit more activated. She's at times feels a little passive throughout this movie, like she's just getting dragged along, or she's being forced. They need her because she's a witness, but they have to keep her, handcuffed to a car or stay in an apartment or something. Right. But it would be nice if she's like, no, I'm pissed. Like, I got to go. This guy deserves justice, and I want to get it now. I think that might have added some urgency to it all.
I agree with that. I mean, I guess it comes down to I don't know how suited she is to this character.
What do you mean specifically?
I don't know that I just feel like her persona is different than being like a Michael Bay ingenue, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say why I wanted to understand what you're saying is because I could see her playing that, what we're talking about, great.
Yes.
Where she's got this simmering sort of anger and I'm not going to let you guys sideline me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and I've said this before about Michael Bay's quote unquote serious movies. I don't think he can really escape his, just his eccentricities.
Sure.
You know, and even like, you know, we talk about Pain and Gain, like that was meant to be him kind of being more of a grown up, and, you know, 13 Hours, you know, and I'm like, there's just something. I mean, I can appreciate his talent. I think he is talented. I just think that he is in a box, and I don't know that he's able to get out of that box.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. But I do admire if this is his directorial debut.
Oh, no doubt.
Given a script that they all didn't think suited the cast that they had, the movie that they wanted to make. I'd say, you know, all the nitpicks aside that we have, not a bad job.
Yeah, well, and certainly you can watch a movie like this and just sort of be taken back to a time when movies used to look like this.
That's true. It's almost hard to remember watching movies in 1995, and this may have felt humongous.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it still does. It still feels like a good big action movie, but not like movies now. I was reading, by the way, I guess on the director's commentary, he talks about this scene where they're throwing the barrels out of the car, and it doesn't feel big enough to him now. It's just funny because I'm watching just enormous fireballs.
Right. It's just everything's on fire. It looks like the opening of Terminator 2.
Yeah. Yeah. I do love, by the way, I don't know that it is expressed the best that it could be, but I love the idea that they need to stop these guys and they're running out of freeway. Like there's a wall up ahead and there's nowhere they can go, and they have to stop them before there's nowhere else they can go. I mean, it is expressed, but I feel like you probably could have made more of a meal out of that.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, yes, this shot stood out to me yesterday. What a choice. Shooting this almost like a telephoto lens with these, what do you call those road horse things with the lights in the foreground. And it's them arguing, but we're not in their face. We're kind of watching it as if we're observers.
See, what's funny is I look at that and I'm like, my immediate thought was that like your other coverage wasn't usable.
Oh, fascinating. Well, I guess I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I felt like it was if we were right in their faces, it might feel really intense and uncomfortable, but watching it from a distance gives us a little protection, and we get to watch them a little uncomfortably, but we're also feeling the heatedness that they have toward one another. I loved it as a choice, but you know what? Who knows? Maybe you're right. Maybe the coverage was out of focus or something.
None of the other angles work. I guess we got this and just like ADR.
Do you remember those old beer commercials where the guy would always luck himself into a situation and they'd think he did it on purpose? And they'd be like, so wait, you're telling me you're Dr. such and such? And he'd go, yes, I am.
Oh my God. I do remember that. Yes.
I was just thinking right now, if I'm like, that shot, Mr. Bay, it was a genius. Like you doing that, that was your intention the whole time, to shoot it from a distance so we feel emotionally that way? And him going, yes, I did.
That's so funny. So this actor right here, that's Sean Tube, who we just saw him recently in we did our Lois and Clark commentary. He's like the guy who's like Lex Luthor's assistant.
Oh, funny.
He sicks the snake on him, remember, in that scene?
I do. I can't say I remember him specifically being honest.
He's in Iron Man. He's the guy who Tony Stark is trapped with.
What? Okay, well that I definitely remember.
Stark. Say use your life or whatever he says.
Mm-hmm.
That's the good stuff right there. This character's vaguely racist.
I know.
And by vaguely, I mean extremely.
Right. Wait, so I read that this scene was a additional photography.
Yeah.
To make the story clearer.
Yeah, it's
And
the equivalent of the overhead Lethal Weapon car shot, you know?
so yeah, like the catch up, like, so where are we at? Okay, so now we know the blah 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 blah. Yeah, which is funny though because then you get this whole thing with the get me the bubblicious, and the guy's like in a package of Skittles.
The thing is, though, Brian, this is like basically an exact replay of the opening pre-title scene.
Interesting, because that's also additional photography.
Yeah, it's a guy brandishing guns at them. I don't believe you're cops.
Right, I
and
see.
then they dispatch and witty rejoinder.
Yeah, they're more concerned with fighting with one another than having a gun put to their heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, by the way, is in the trailer for Bad Boys 4. Literally, what I was going to say was this additional photography where I'm sure it was him improvising, Martin Lawrence saying, yeah, give me a bag of Skittles. Yep. That's in the Bad Boys 4 trailer, so that's a character trait for him now. But it's the exact same scenario where they have a gun to their head in a convenience store, but they can't be bothered with that because they're mad at one another.
And whenever they have that happen, he really needs Skittles. I get it.
Okay. It's a runner.
It's a runner, exactly.
Yeah, so this scene is like 12 scenes too late.
That's right.
Where she's trying to seduce him to get him to admit that he's not who he says he is. Marcus.
I'm sorry, Brian. I was briefly hypnotized while you were...
Dude, I mean, Téa Leoni looks incredible in this movie.
Sculpted out of marble.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To which I then say, what was David Duchovny thinking?
That's so funny. It's funny when you say that because it immediately makes me think of the Jay Leno thing, which I also want a reference Lost to Time a little
Lost
bit.
Lost to Time? Yeah. What, you mean you don't remember Divine Brown?
I'll never forget Divine Brown.
Isn't it weird that there's a whole generation of kids who were between junior high and high school who knew the name of the prostitute that gave Hugh Grant a BJ?
Yeah, while he was dating Elizabeth Hurley. I mean, I think anytime I see Elizabeth Hurley, I always think, you idiot.
You're right.
Isn't that fun? I mean, to this day, that's just programmed in me now. Yeah, just funny. One of those weird little things that wormed its way into our heads that will never leave us.
Yeah, that's the legend goes that by happenstance, the weekend after Hugh Grant's little encounter, he was booked on the Tonight Show to promote that movie with Julianne Moore. Nine months, I think so.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Right, and so everyone assumed he would cancel, but he didn't.
Yeah.
And so right out the chute, Jay Leno says, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
And supposedly from that moment on, the Tonight Show beat David Letterman and did so every day until Jay Leno left the air.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And kind of genius, honestly, on Hugh Grant's part. Like, let Jay Leno speak for the world.
Yeah.
Show your face and move on.
Well, yeah, and he comes out and he's like, "Yes, I'm terribly sorry." You know, he did his Hugh Grant persona,
his charming blither,
which is so funny. Like that, it was like charming when he was a young, attractive guy. Now he's just like a grumpy old man doing that same thing.
I was gonna say he went from charming blither to grumpy blather. Didn't he? I mean, he's like Oompa Loompa. It's like he can't even be a happy Oompa Loompa, or
Good
even
Lord.
like
he bitched incessantly about that.
I know.
I'm like, bro, just catch the check, man.
It's so funny. Dude, 9 months. I remember seeing that in the theater because I just saw everything, and I remember Robin Williams had a cameo as a manic doctor. Or like a manic OBGYN. I mean, he had like 2 scenes or something. And I think they were putting it in all the trailers, but it really was just like a glorified cameo.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the only thing I remember about that.
And that movie came out basically just a couple months after this movie right here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. July 1995.
Wow. Okay. So that's Julianne Moore before Boogie Nights.
That's right. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Post Fugitive, pre Boogie Nights.
Yeah, yeah.
So she was on the rise at that
Totally.
point.
Yeah. It's Bad Boys.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, I have been watching it while we're talking, but yeah, I am feeling a little like, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I think the dilemma is with a story like this. It's this balancing act between the seriousness and the comedy, and you can't tip over too far in this direction or too far in that direction.
Yeah.
And for me, what I found at least is that the improv banter is enjoyable enough, but it reaches sort of a crescendo, and at that point, I'm like, okay, let's move on now.
Totally.
It's a bit like oh God, what is that? The Fast and Furious, the spin-off one. What was that? Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're sitting there. It's like 20 minutes of them saying, "No, your dick is small. No, your dick is small." And it's like, all right, we get it. Both your dicks are small.
Yeah. Although I will say to this, I do like the majority of the banter in this movie, and in that one, it was just insufferable. I couldn't. It's like just watching two guys, or at least with The Rock, from my perspective. Just the guys like, you love it, don't you? You'll enjoy 2 hours of this. I know you will. I know what you want. It's like, no,
is it weird how there's been like this pronounced Rock burnout over the last like 4 years, let's say?
I will say this. I don't know. I don't know if he's a good guy or not. I hope he is. But like, I'm proud to say I think I was ahead of that. I was getting a little tired of him like several years ago, because I was like, he's not pushing himself. He's not pushing anything new.
Yeah.
And in a way, I'm kind of glad it did catch up with him, because now he has like an A24 movie coming out this season that's going to get a huge awards push.
Yeah, he's got some movie where he looks like John Cena. Did you see that? Is that the one?
Maybe. Like, I don't know. It's not The Fighter, but it's something like that.
Okay.
And I'm like, great, good, cool. Like, you have an incredible persona and following. So like,
yeah, charisma
is a better. Yeah, I'm tired of the persona, but like, use it. Go make something interesting. Put yourself. I don't know.
No,
which is interesting though, because we can relate that to Will Smith, because remember when he turned down Django Unchained.
That's right.
Tarantino offered him the Jamie Foxx role, and he turned it down. And I think people were like, well, of course Will Smith wouldn't do a movie like that. He doesn't push himself. But it is interesting that he did not have that burnout that people are feeling with The Rock doing whatever he was doing. Because I think, like you said, he was doing dramatic things well. He was doing comedy well. He was doing, he was doing tough guy well.
Right. Well, I think here's the thing, and this is just as applicable here, right? I mean, I think that when you have it written into your contract that you can't lose a fight on screen,
yeah,
that's sort of perplexing to me, because I'm like, how thin-skinned are you? Like, how fragile is your ego, right? Like, and granted, and I know we've discussed this before, like, what makes Indiana Jones endearing is all the ways he's hopelessly outmatched, and he's always getting his ass kicked.
Mm-hmm.
And he keeps coming back.
And the first thing off the top of my head too, I was like, the Terminator. Even in like Terminator 2, it's like a machine that cannot be killed, getting the crap kicked out of it, and then a little spear through its back. Like, whatever it is, it's thwarted. For a moment, it's thwarted, and we don't know what's going to happen next. If you don't have that, you don't have drama.
Yeah.
I
think that's the with respect to action heroes, I think, and maybe to some extent that's what if there is superhero burnout, it may be fueled by that. It's like, look, we want to see some vulnerability here.
I mean, that has been my complaint for a very long time with the Marvel movies, where I never understood anyone's vulnerabilities because no one had any. It was like they just got punched until the scene needed to move on. There was no like power bar like in a video game. I never understood if anyone was actually getting weaker. And so, yeah, I think that really helps when you can have that.
I mean, when it comes to Will Smith, right? You look at just in the 90s, right? You have 95 was this, 96 Independence Day, 97 was Agent J. 90, what did he do in 98? Oh, he did Enemy of the State in 98.
I never saw that one.
Seriously, you never seen Enemy of the State? Oh, you'd like it.
No.
Oh,
Yeah?
you'd like it. Yeah, it's a good movie.
Him and Gene Hackman, right?
Hey, shit, man, we should watch that together.
I don't know how well, let's watch it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're hanging out this weekend, guys.
Yeah. This is a stick pin in time.
Perfect. I'm excited. All right.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
That works, by the way, as a great pseudo sequel to The Conversation.
Interesting. Okay.
Have you seen You've seen The Conversation?
I
right?
have. Yeah.
So imagine that Gene Hackman is playing Harry Call, like 25 years later, whatever it is.
All right. I like that.
Yeah. I think it might even be exactly 25 years later now that I think about it. But regardless, so that 95, 96, 97, 98, not too bad shabby. 99, he does Wild Wild West.
Right.
Not his finest hour. But regardless, what we saw there was it was sort of like the Will Smith, big screen persona where, and I'm using that word, but similar characters, kind of different, but all kind of,
Sure.
that's same swag or whatever. And it took, realizing that not everybody's going to take off, not every movie's going to take off, for him to start pushing against that a little bit. Like, I think, look, his Oscar for whatchamacallit?
King Richard,
thank you. Richly deserved. I think it was a terrific performance.
Yeah, me too.
However, there was a few roles in there that were like too heavily like, hey, give me an Oscar.
Yeah, like 7 pounds.
7 pounds, Collateral Beauty.
Concussion? That's a thing, right?
Concussion for sure.
Yeah. I couldn't remember.
Speaking of Luke Wilson, that had Luke Wilson as Roger Goodell.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't see that one.
I mean, you know what? The movie's fine. Like, it's totally fine. But to me, it was very much like Will Smith being like, "Hey, Academy, look at me,"
Yeah, I remember that was 7 pounds. I did see that one.
Yeah,
that one is so maudlin and like
that dude.
Just like yeah.
That was very much in the vein of like Pay It Forward or those type of
yeah. Where it tried to be sort of uplifting, kind of at the end, but it was really sad.
Are you crying? Are you crying yet? Are you crying?
Yeah, exactly. That should be a genre.
Beat you with this mallet, then you're gonna cry.
Yeah. They don't exist, but like at a video store, like, you crying? You crying yet? Are you crying? That'd be a great section to like Pay It Forward. Yeah, like, that's hilarious.
See, this right is such a weird conversation talking about whipping their dicks out and stuff.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
that's weird. I
was looking away for a minute. It's funny.
I think what this movie started off like, I think what it needed to do more of, and I think what the sequels do, like I said earlier, really establishing the differences in their personas.
Yeah.
Like, as cops, I mean, like, how are they different types of cops? Because again, it feels like, both of them needed to look like badasses. And I think that, I think you got to have a Riggs, you got to have a Murtaugh,
Mm-hmm.
Like even the Rush Hour movies, right? Like they have different energies, and that's what's fun.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I mean, and obviously as the movies go along, maybe they adopt one another's quirks and whatnot. But in the first movie, you would love the contrast to be as stark as possible.
Yeah. I just earlier this morning, I saw a video like to tie in with the Bad Boys Ride or Die. And it's like Will Smith and Martin Lawrence now, and they're kind of like looking back at pictures from this movie and the making of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And man, you see the difference. They are children in this movie.
Huh.
They look great for their age, but man, you really see the passage of years, So it's remarkable that they're still going. And again, we're talking without a net here, but based on all indications, this fourth one is going to end up being a big hit. Hey man, that's something.
Absolutely.
I mean, it does make me wonder a little bit, like, does the generation that grew up with these movies, do they look at them like we do Lethal Weapon?
I wonder. Actually, going back to what I was saying about Will Smith way earlier,
Yeah.
and how I've always loved him, and my relationship with him in media was like baked in at an early age. So even when he and his family behave oddly,
Sure.
and all that stuff, I sort of look past it because I love the guy. And so I'm wondering, for younger people, is he just this like, oh yeah, he's this weird movie actor guy. Like, he's weird. His family's weird. Nothing about him seems authentic.
Wow.
I wonder. I don't know. And I'm sure your kids probably have a unique relationship with him because you've shown his movies to them.
Yeah, I mean, we've watched Fresh Prince. We've watched all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I do feel that before even all that red table talk and all that stuff, but just like what felt to me like this desire to just like shove your kids into the spotlight. I'm like, why are you doing that to your kids, man?
I know. That's like recently. Did you see that whole thing with Kardashian and Kanye's kid at the Hollywood Bowl for that Lion King thing?
Oh, I didn't hear. Northwest we're talking about?
Yeah. There was like a 30th anniversary celebration of the Lion King. So Northwest went out and sang "I Just Can't Wait to Be King."
Okay.
And I say that I don't want to be part of those voices, but people were not kind to the performance
because of
it felt very much like the kid at your kid's elementary school.
Sure.
Like it was what it was. And it's like, that's so unfair because now I'm seeing all these reactions like, oh, she's terrible. And what, I'm like, well, yeah, but is it her fault? Like, I feel really bad for her. Like, she's just like, someone told her to go out there, or her parents said, hey, go do this and stand in front of the Hollywood Bowl and do whatever you're going to do.
Yeah, that's rough, man.
And so, that feels like the most recent thing where it's just trying to shove the kids out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Will Smith and Jada, it was like unabashed, just especially with Jaden, I remember in particular. And I wonder how they feel about that.
That's what I'm saying, right? Because I saw an interview back in the day with the daughter, what's her name? Willow.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's so hard being a celebrity.
Right.
I'm like, you're not a celebrity.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sympathetic to, I'm sure there's aspects of your life that are difficult, but let's not pretend that you have achieved fame. You were born of famous people. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, and they are being insisted.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
To quote Peter Griffin, they insist upon this.
Yeah. And I have these weird split feelings about it because I saw the Smashing Pumpkins about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then out of nowhere, he's like, Willow Smith. And then she came out and joined them on one song.
Okay.
And I was like, what? Like, why?
That's interesting.
And then she just left. And I think you could sense in the audience, everyone like, huh? And it's weirdly not her fault.
Right.
I don't know, but it's also like, I don't have to accept this either. I don't know.
Right. No, I think you're, yeah. I mean, that's the whole collective weirdness that we're talking about though. Right. Like,
yeah.
Where people have this odd reaction to Will's okay, real quick. This whole thing is very weird to me because why would these guys just show up here in the middle of the day?
Right.
They know they're cops.
Right.
Doesn't make sense to me. Anyway.
And I felt bad for this bellhop who gets killed here. Oh, there he goes. Yeah, I was worried about the front desk guy.
It's okay. Chet makes it, Brian. That's the important
Chet,
thing.
well, I'm endeared to Chet, but it also made me feel bad. This poor guy, probably like a Thursday. He's like, one more day to go. Then I get to go be home with my wife.
Well, life is about choices. He chose to come in that day. It's his own damn fault.
It also made me think you don't see a lot of like collateral damage much in movies anymore either.
Yes.
Like, it makes me think, I mean, for me, because I'm obsessed with the movie, but Terminator 2, that poor guy in the back of the mall.
I always think about that.
With the Pepsi can.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And you're just like, oh, why?
But I'm always like, bro, just duck, man. Why are you getting like in the middle? Like, what?
Yeah. No, it's true. But it's very confusing. He sees a cop. He sees a kid who's not supposed to be there. And then every time I'm like, oh, man, that poor guy.
So this sequence right here is where I'm like, man, they're just really pouring on the slow motion.
Yes. And I guess, wasn't it Will Smith didn't want to run with his shirt off here?
I wonder why. He looks fine.
I was going to say, he looks great. Like, this is total movie star shot.
Yes.
Right? Like, this is not Fresh Prince. This is like Will Smith movie star.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
His sort of like, I mean, he talked before about being on Fresh Prince and sort of feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome, like he's a musician and you have all these like legitimate actors who are there, and he felt very, and he's talked about like that manifested in ways that sort of damaged his relationship with what's her name, Janet Hubert Whitten, who played the original Aunt Viv.
Interesting.
But you wonder this right here. Oh, let's run through a modeling shoot. Why not?
Right.
I'm in LA all the time. How come you never have me run through a random modeling shoot, Brian?
Yeah. When we're trying to like make our way down a sidewalk and like, oh damn, there's a modeling shoot up ahead. We have to go around.
I want to run through it like Mike Lowry.
Actually, I have encountered a couple modeling shoots walking around.
Well, now I'm even more upset.
Yeah, I took my my relatives. Oh, I don't know if they listen to the commentaries all the time, but they listen to the episodes. And I took them to Rodeo Drive, and there was like a legit model shoot going on down there. And it's like you couldn't script a better bringing people from out of town to Beverly Hills experience.
That's so funny.
It's like everything you would expect, the cliche.
So all these cutaways of them running and them looking like, it was probably shot with for many of them, like, we don't even know where we're going to put this in,
Totally.
It's like, let's just get you running and like you got your mouth open or whatever,
And isn't that kind of what we did?
Dude,
like
all the time.
Back?
That's what I was thinking. I was literally thinking of that.
Let's get some awesome shots and then we'll figure out how they go together.
Like that right there, Will running.
Yeah.
They just like grabbed it.
Totally. Yeah. That's good though. I love this stuff.
I mean, like that horror movie that you and I did,
Mm-hmm.
with like Sean directed that, right?
Something freaky. Yep.
Something freaky, and he, very clever. Oh, this right here.
I mean, this is it.
This is the shot that powered every wannabe film student from 1996 to 2004. I'm going to say
100%. That low, pointing up, swirling around, the heroes standing up, haggard in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it still looks awesome.
I think it does. But Sean was very clearly, he brought in like very Bay influenced shots in very clever ways. By the way,
agreed.
And
I mean,
also
I watched
in that other one.
now.
Remember, were you in what was that? Jer's Angels. Remember that other one?
No, I was not. That was definitely
Paul Shirey.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean that stuff circa 1999. So right smack dab in the middle of sort of the Bay era,
Mm-hmm. I just can't help but notice all the blinds shadows on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I just love it. It's just extra visual je ne sais quoi.
So I'm sitting here wondering, I'm like, did they just shoot out Marg Helgenberger in like a day? Like, because it's 3 scenes of her just walking in and be like, and then she storms out.
That's so true.
All right, print next. Here, and she leaves.
It's so true. I love that scene too. By the way, we're off the case, but damn it, go get him. Go get him anyway, kind of thing. I mean, that definitely feels like out of. I mean, you got to have it, I guess.
I was actually thinking. I was like, my memory was of Joey Pants being a lot more yelly and like less reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And then you watch this, you're like, nah, he's actually like pretty cool dude.
I know, maybe it's 2 that changes.
Maybe.
I don't know.
This look at Francine over there.
Yeah, I know she does not look comfortable with what's happening.
She's like, huh?
I love the spouse, significant other. That's interesting.
Francine,
but
you know what you did.
She is like the template of this character. She is
Right.
so good at this. It sort of reminds me of the Heidi Gardner character, the
Oh, sure.
girlfriend of every boxer,
Yes,
but without the grit.
I mean, she even looks like Heidi Gardner.
Yeah, like the real put upon.
Yep.
I didn't choose this life. You gotta believe me. You know, like cigarette shaking in her fingers.
Yeah, that's right.
But look at her eyes. I want to hug her. She's so good at it. Yeah.
See, I thought this part, because she's like, oh, and they got pictures of me, and I thought it'd be funny right here. She's like, listen, I'll do it. I'll make it up to you. I'll do whatever I can. If you want me to take some pictures for you, I'll be happy to. It's like, no, that's what got you into this,
Francine. That feels like a Naked Gun,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this was my thought. Actually, it's like Naked Gun, right? When you watch Naked Gun, it's obviously going through all the cop movie tropes, but that's what makes it funny because it's lampooning them, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was my issue with this. I'm like, this is too strenuously formulaic, and it's not doing enough to mix it up or to comment on it.
Right.
Because I was literally thinking about Naked Gun. I was like, that's why at least 2.5 of those movies work the way they do.
Right. 2.5.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. That was unintentional, but
I was gonna say, yeah, that's pretty good.
The third one's not great. I think we can acknowledge that, right?
If I'm not mistaken, I feel like half of the third one is made up of deleted scenes from the second one.
Is that right?
Which you can tell because Priscilla Presley's hair is sometimes red.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And sometimes it isn't.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Wow. See,
So
I
it's kind of cobbled together out of extra footage. Sort of like that Ron Burgundy movie that was a DVD extra feature where they were like, well, we have so much extra footage we can construct an entire other movie. The Wake Up Ron Burgundy. That's kind of hilarious. That's what Naked Gun 33 1/3 is. That
suddenly things are very clear for me after 30 years of looking down my nose at that movie.
Dude, is this like the most Bay-est of airport hangars ever?
This
feels like Con Air. This feels like Face Off. This feels like Bad Boys. This era. It feels like they ended in places like this. I can see John Cusack showing up in his old car here and being like, "Where's that prisoner plane going?"
Yep. And that was Simon West, but very much doing Michael Bay. Lest we get any angry emails from people.
Sorry, I meant the aesthetic of the era is what I was trying to say.
Defending Simon West's honor.
Yeah. But something that did jump out at me is that even when we try to make these grounded movies now that aren't about, super beings or anything, we still plus everything with computers.
Yeah.
And try to make it bigger and bigger. And how do we make our movie bigger than the last thing you saw and whatever? And I really appreciated how tactile, and this is gargantuan. This whole place blows up and it looks amazing, but it really is completely plausible. Everything that happens here. You know what I mean?
I mean, plausible.
Well, plausible. Like a stunt guy was on a wire flying back. You know what I'm saying? Like the action and the way that it's executed, just by virtue of the era it was filmed in, had to actually be practically captured, and that makes it really
limited by what was achievable.
Yeah, and I like that. I think that's why I like going back to these '90s movies that I missed, because I enjoy that vibe.
I'm with you, and again, it's we take for granted so many of the visual flourishes that Michael Bay sort of normalized. Mm-hmm. And it's just little stuff like that shot we just saw a few seconds ago where Checky Cario's on the phone and the camera's just kind of moving in front of him.
Like circling around him.
Yeah.
But he's just on a phone call. Yeah.
And the problem, it's both good and bad, right? Because the problem is that without the substance, you're just painfully aware of how it's just frosting with no cake,
Yeah, sure.
And so you can see Michael Bay being having a music video honed approach, because it's all about the visuals. You're not trying to tell a story per se. Right? You're not trying to tell like an earth shattering story.
Well, and it makes me think of Armageddon, where he was maybe doing that too much, where it's just like these two lovers talking to one another, but the camera's just like,
yep.
And you're like, all right, like let's actually get in closer with them and their emotions right now.
Yep. That's the scene where they're playing with the animal crackers.
That or something. They're on a tarmac or something, and I just remember it felt less like the movie cared about what was emotionally happening, but look at this shot.
Well, wasn't that the movie? I think it was. Yeah, Bruce Willis got pissed at Bay, and he was like, "Why are you shooting this like it's a Drakkar Noir commercial?"
Oh, did he really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't watched that in a very long time.
Oh, I saw it one time the whole way through when it came out, opening day, and that was probably it for me.
I worked with an editor who worked on that movie, and I was like, wait. So you were doing all those cuts and the, two frame cuts and all that sort of thing before computers? Like you were on that? What was that like? And she was like, not fun.
I would imagine. I was like, God, I'd be holed up in a rubber room after that.
I know, it's amazing.
A room with like squiggly lines all over the walls. You're like Oxley in doing that,
Crystal Skull, yeah. I was texting you while I was watching this yesterday, and I was like, truly, this was the era of guys in jumpsuits getting shot off of scaffolding. It reminded me of like Die Hard 2, in the airport, the shutdown wing, and there's the guys in jumpsuits on scaffolding getting shot at.
You don't know what you have until it's gone.
I know. You forgot your boarding pass. I remember that. That is awesome. That guy flying out of the plane.
I thought it'd be funny if you cut to an exterior and it's just like a sun exploding, and then you cut back inside and it's still everything's normal. Because the explosions are so overblown. I just thought it'd be funny. Like the exterior is like Krypton exploding, and then you cut back and still everybody's just running around here. Like,
dude, that is hilarious.
See this guy, right? That's the bodyguard, right?
That's the bodyguard, Don Simpson's bodyguard.
And I was like, his death feels a little like why that guy? Why does he get like such a glamorous death, so to speak?
That is really funny.
That's probably just because, we'll give you a cool death scene, You know
what's funny? I was in a short film you made where I get killed.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And I showed it to my mom, and it really disturbed her.
Really?
And I was like, I didn't even think about it that way. Like, she's like,
the shitty filmmaker. And she's like, no, you dying is fine, but goddamn, Zach, you should never make movies again. Tell him that.
No, but it's just funny because I was like, oh, yeah, I guess that is kind of a disturbing visual.
To watch your son. Yeah.
Yeah, but if I was an actor, going back to that bodyguard, and they're like, hey, we want to shoot you, or you're going to die, I'd be like, all right, cool. And they're like, well, actually, what if we had you back into an electrical unit and get shocked and flown through? I'd be like, yeah, I want the most spectacular death possible as a performer, And he gets probably the best death in this third act.
That's so funny. That was a good short film that we made, you and I.
I think so. I think obviously it'd be nice if we had professional lighting and the cameras and whatnot, but I think your shot choices and I think the execution's great.
Oh, look at that. See this right here. Look at that. That Krypton exploding right here.
Why not? Why not have those power lines blow up? Why not have yeah. I also love, by the way, going back to you saying maybe they just tried to capture random cool shots. So we get Martin Lawrence with the gun, you forgot your boarding pass. And then we get that random one of Will Smith with the shotgun, like, sup. That makes me wonder if they're like, hey, no, I need a cool line with the gun.
You're right. Totally.
And they shot 10 of them and picked the best ones. Yeah.
These guys do yell at each other a lot. I wish they'd yell less.
Yeah, that can get a little grating after a while.
Yeah. It's a lot.
I like this. I like the stakes of this when it's like you or him, you or the bad guy are going through that wall. There's an opening only big enough for one car. Who's it going to be?
Yeah.
That's good.
That is good.
That's good stuff.
And it's it's staged really well. It's shot. Look at I love the heat the heat lines that make it blurry and stuff. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, sense of speed is incredible here. Yeah, this is like good. Nothing supernatural, or it doesn't need to be bigger. It's just who's gonna make it. Kind of reminds me, by the way, when you're saying they're yelling at each other so much. I guess Michael Bay showed the opening scene to his mother.
Okay.
And she was like, "Why are they swearing so much?"
Oh yeah.
And he realized, like, oh man, they swear like in this like one scene like 30 times or something like that. And so he trimmed it back. He trimmed it down to like 12 or something.
Oh wow.
And I was like, that's one of those things that happens, I think, when actors improvise, because they're thinking, they're processing.
Yeah.
And like curse words become like ums.
Yes.
You know, and so then you get to this thing where you're like, you start to notice it, like, man, these guys are swearing a lot. I don't think they know what to say.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that Lindsay Lohan movie, like her grown-up movie. It's like a murder thriller thing. Remember?
Yeah,
I Know Who Killed Me. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
And there's totally that where like they just point the camera at her and she's clearly improvising and she's just dropping F-bombs left, right, and center.
Right.
And I had that exact thought. I was like, don't let her riff, man. Just give her something to memorize.
Give her something to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great shot, by the way, where he's running away and there's that huge X on the ground right before he gets shot. That's good stuff. Apparently, I mean, I read this. I haven't seen it myself, but Scorsese does that in The Departed. Before anyone who's about to die, there's an X somewhere in the frame, which he took from the original Scarface.
Okay.
The original gangster film.
The from the 30s.
Yeah, not the Al Pacino one.
See, okay, so obviously Mike has a grudge against Fouché because he killed his friend, right?
Yeah.
But here's the problem. We needed one more scene. We needed a scene between Fouché and Mike in the middle of the movie. Where he's like, taunting
this is
him,
my adversary. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Because this, you tell me, doesn't it feel like it just kind of comes out of nowhere?
I'm with you on that. And maybe even one more intimate, personal scene with him and Max.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, because with the sense is that they're friends. Did he love her?
Yeah.
Because none of this works for me. Where Fouché's like, well, then kill me. Like, well, why? What's his deal, right? What is he? We never got a scene of him by himself. What drives him?
Right.
And then right here, man, Brian, this is the trope that just drives me bananas. Where it's why does he pull his gun out? Why? What does he think? How does he think this is going to end?
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think about it, right? He is alive right now. He will stay alive. He has been wounded. He can't get up and run away. Right?
That is true. And
so it drives me nuts.
3 people versus 1.
You do. It's stupid. Makes no sense. And it's because these movies do this thing where it's like, you can't kill the guy because that would make you a bad guy. But you have to kill the guy because he's the bad guy. So we have to do this little stupid dance.
Right.
Right? They did it in the first Lethal Weapon. I'll let it slide. But remember, he's like, oh, it's not worth it. And then he kills him anyway, right? How many movies have they done that with? You're not worth it. And then you have to kill him anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's very true. Well, here's the I love you scene we were talking about.
Yeah. It's weird to me that Will Smith like dug in his heels on that.
I know. Yeah. Again, I'm trying to put myself in the era or something, but otherwise it feels like they've earned it. I kind of want to hear them say that to each other. That's what they mean.
You picture Nick Frost in the audience being like, gay.
Right. Well, maybe in 95. I don't know.
I mean, I can't imagine anybody would watch this movie and you know what I mean? Like, I don't even understand that. I mean, I lived through the 90s. I know it was not exactly a panacea for gay rights. I get it.
Yeah, or I guess when I said maybe, I don't mean that I would think the audience would do that, but that was what was in Will Smith's head.
No, yeah, right. But that's my point is that, yeah, people were more homophobic back then, but it wasn't like you know what I mean? There was nothing in their relationship that would lead one to
Right.
make that leap. Like it feels like a you problem or a him problem, you know, like
Exactly. Yeah. Thinking
weird to
too
me.
much about his persona or something.
Girl decoy, Lisa Boyle.
Lisa Boyle. There you go,
Again,
Zachy. Nice job.
Not sure why I would know that, Brian. No idea. Why?
By the way,
There's no reason for me to know that, really.
so funny. I was just gonna ask, take a stab at what you think the budget was for this.
Oh gosh, I mean, it was like 30 million or something, wasn't it?
Apparently, according to Michael Bay, it was 17.
That's amazing.
It's pretty
That
amazing.
is amazing. Well, and the second one cost 120 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that it's like Terminator 2 level bump.
Yeah.
And what we know about
Yeah.
the second one, what we know is none of that money went into the script. So
right.
For certain, we know of that.
That's so funny. I think I've only seen 2 all the way through once.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I watched it. Actually, here's a little point of trivia. I think I've said this on the regular show. Bad Boys 2 is the very last movie that I watched as a single man.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
That was literally, the Sunday before I got married.
Oh, wow. That's when that
Bad
movie
Boys
came
2.
out?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, so I was in college. Maybe that's why I missed it. But, I love that. I love that personal trivia there.
Yeah, in fact, the reason I saw it at the time, I was working at Target, and they came out with a new edition of Bad Boys on DVD, which included a ticket to see Bad Boys 2.
Ah, that's kind of cool.
So bought the DVD, used it to look at the ticket. It was like that was the last day I could use it.
Wow. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. And so I went, and I regretted the nothing I spent on that movie.
That's so funny. Is it bad?
And
that's the one where it becomes a cartoon.
Oh yeah.
I remember they're like cadavers are flying out of a truck and they're running over them in their car during a chase. Yeah, like a darker sort of comedy.
Yeah, and by then Michael Bay did have final edit, I'm guessing.
Sure. Yeah. So it's like 2 hours and 31 minutes
Dude,
or something.
148 minutes.
Wow.
Are you freaking kidding me?
That's crazy.
I hadn't even seen it. I'm like, I don't remember it, but I'm like, no, there's no reason for that movie to be that long.
No. That's punishing at that point.
By the way, we just blazed past him in conversation, or we didn't mention him at all, but Mark Mancina, who did the score.
Yes.
It was a terrific score.
Great score. I was listening to it. I couldn't believe I knew this theme.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't place what movie it was in. Yeah. And then some of it I thought, wow, this sounds a lot like Speed.
Yep.
And then like even down to like dun 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 dun, like kind of a feel. And sure enough, it's the guy who did Speed.
It's the guy who did Speed. They tempt this movie with Speed music. And again, I watched Speed yesterday, so back to back, but just by chance, 2 Mark Mancina movies.
Yeah.
They tempt it with Speed music, and to his credit, he was like, well, I know they wanted just like Speed music, but he still gave it something different, you know?
Yeah. I thought it worked.
I really like the character theme, and I wish they would have brought it back for the other movies, but once he begged off, that was it. And speaking of that being it, that is it, Brian.
That is it. That is it.
That was Bad Boys.
That was fun. That was fun to...
Hey, thanks.
You know, sometimes we do movies that we are passionate about, and both of us, one of us will have like a lot to say about it. And then sometimes there's a movie that we're like, oh yeah, I've seen that. That'd be interesting to revisit. And so it was kind of fun to go in here, not really knowing what you were going to say about it or what I was going to say about it, and just kick back with my best friend and just watch Bad Boys. That's what this felt like.
I'll be honest. This kind of makes me want to delve into the other Simpson Bruckheimer joints from the 90s, you know?
That would be a fun series, Zachy. I'm into that.
Like let's do, let's pop on whatever, Con Air and see what we have to say. Stuff like that. You know?
Sure.
Something to think about. But hey, between now and the next time we record, we'll be seeing Bad Boys 4, possibly together.
Yep.
And so we'll have lots to say about that one in our next regular show. But, until then, if everybody has any questions or comments for us about this track, maybe you disagree with us, maybe you were a dyed-in-the-wool defender of this movie, well, by all means, you can email us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com or hit like on our Facebook page, facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast, and message us there. As always, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, leave a star rating if you like what we're doing. We would appreciate that so very much. And with that, on behalf of my partner Brian Hall, my name is Zaki Hassan. This has been our movie film commentary for Bad Boys. We'll catch you next time. Thank you, folks.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they